And we're back. Mike Cernovich, Cernovich.com. Movie about my life is coming out. A movie about my life cost over $1 million to make by the Atlantic. And it's coming out soon. And I'm hyping it. I'm hyping a film to make me look scary. So the very meta of all of this. So I think I'm smoking Monte Cristo domestic. By the way, check out this hair. Whoosh. My hair now is officially in tangle mode. So what I'm doing with my hair is I'm just growing it out. I'm growing it out because then I can do anything with it. So my hair's, if I weten it a certain way, I can make it look good. But I mean, this is chunky. That's all real hair too. All real. It's the power of fish oil. 42 years old. I'm an old man. If you ever told me you're gonna have hair like that as an old man, well, I would have said not even possible. How can anyone have this hair as a young man, let alone as an old man? If I colored this shit, I'd look 35. Anyway, film's coming out about my life, and as a filmmaker myself, I'm wondering just how you cut me into a racial thing, right? That's what I don't get. There's a lot of ways to make Mike Cernovich look like a very scary guy, right? Rob, how you doing, man? Yeah, exactly. Let's just do we'll do a film. Chris Rock can do it. Good Hair Part 2. We'll call it Good Hair Part 2. And the thing about the film is I'm a filmmaker, and there's a lot of ways that I could make Mike Cernovich look like a scary person. I don't get the racial thing, right? Because the film's called White Noise. It has a very, let me see if I can find the picture. It has a very scary image here. Let me open the image in new tab and see if I can show you. Let me see if I can show you the picture here real quick. Hold on here. We're a little lo-fi today. White Noise inside the racist right. White Noise, ominous, scary. So just for me as a filmmaker, I talked to this guy, Daniel, who I quite liked. I quite like. It looks like other people higher ups at the Atlantic got a hold of the project, and that's just the way it is. Just the way it is. Because I'm gonna get the huge. Why'd you be in a film? The media is gonna attack you. The media is gonna do this, that, and the other thing for you, and blah 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 blah. And the answer is that I'm a gonzo journalist. I'm a gonzo guy. I'm a guy who has always wanted everything that you could have in life, in one life. So in that way, I'm greedy for life. What's it like to have a multi-million-dollar film made about you to make people afraid of you, to create a caricature of you, it's a horror film essentially. What is that like? Well, I know what that's like now. I know what it's like to have a book about my life. I know what it's like to meet, hundreds of reporters. So for me, this is just all a very interesting. It's just a part of the human condition. It's just part of the human life, and it's part of living a full life, right? So that's with me. It's just that's life, people. That's just life, and so I don't trip. I don't stress out about this kind of stuff. It's like self-contradictory. Be like, I don't care, but you're talking about something that you don't care about. Yes, I also talk about a lot of things, right? I talk about, everything. So it isn't like, oh, you're talking about this, so you must really care. It's like, this is one of, I don't know, Periscope one of thousands. But again, for me, I'm just trying to think, how do you make a film? How do you make a film playing up me and doing racial politics? Because I've been pretty staunchly against all that stuff, for at least 4 years. So you'd have to slice and dice a bunch of grainy periscopes, I guess. Here's a periscope where I said this. It's like, yeah, I was probably doing an impersonation, right? It's like, you can soundboard me saying anything. So it'd be interesting. Again, it's just part of life. Do I blow dry my hair? No, I have a detangler. And so with this film, what is the film really trying to do? The film is part of the never-ending mission of the media to draft me into their shitty little race war. That's what they're trying to do. What they want to do is make me join their shitty little race war by marginalizing me, radicalizing me, attacking me, and then like their little puppet. Then I'll be like, oh, I guess I have to be this way. I'll have to be this way because I don't have any other options or whatever. And just no, I continue to reject the media's effort to draft me into their shitty little race war. I'm just not going to do it. But that's the game, right? Because that's the game. Anybody who reads me, watches my stuff, anybody who knows my stuff, it's like, that's just not your bag, bro. There was even somebody trying to be like, oh, Islamophobia. Islamophobia. I'm a great friend of the Muslims. I have a ton of Muslim followers. And my Muslim followers have a sense of humor. So I think one time I said, what did I say? Something about chaperoning. I can't remember what I said. But it was basically like in Islamic countries, you have to have a chaperone. So it's like, how do feminists reconcile? How do feminists reconcile that with rape culture, right? Oh, so you must be Islamophobic. Anybody call me scatterbrain is just never, how do you say? Never been in a Cernovich periscope, and just they can't shift from subject to subject. I can go from talking about my hair, sometimes to my daughter sitting on my lap, to talking about cigars and whiskey, to talking about the deepest philosophical questions of our day. By the way, this weekend I'm going to a meditation retreat, so the timing's a little unfortunate for me because I'll be gone this weekend and a lot of next week. So they're gonna be like, "Oh, the film killed him," and it's like, "No, I'm at a meditation retreat, right?" So literally, like, I'm gonna be offline, not able to respond to this fucking stuff because I won't have my phone with me, and I'll be meditating. I'm in the cleansing phase of I'm in the cleansing phase of um, the process. So before you go in, before you go into any kind of spiritual retreat, you always want to focus your intent, right? You always want to. It's called focusing your intent. And what do you mean by focusing your intent? Like, what are you going there to do? What work are you trying to put in? So when I did, for example, ayahuasca 6 years ago, I just wanted to really face my fears. I'm somebody who am called courageous, but I don't think that really is appropriate because most of what I do is because I'm pushing myself through my fears. When I do these things, it's because I'm afraid. When I agree to things that I do, it's because I'm terrified, because I feel panic and anxiety, and I know that I have to push through. When I confronted the entire White House press briefing room about Antifa violence, my heart was the thump, the thump, the thump, the thump, the thump, the thump. My mouth was completely dry. I could hardly talk. I was terrified. That's why I do it. That's why I push these things. So, the ayahuasca 6 years ago, um, that was just me about. I just wanted to, why am I a fearful person? Why do I feel this fear? Where is this coming from? How do I push through this fear? And then when I returned to the medicine, a few months ago in January, it was I wanted to understand the true nature of reality, and God showed me reality. I did a couple podcasts on my experience with ayahuasca, and I actually it showed to me that a pandemic was coming. So if you go back and listen to that ayahuasca, that was all pre-coronavirus. It showed me that a pandemic was coming, and it showed me that a miscarriage was coming. I didn't know it at the time, and so both of those things because So I saw God, and God explained everything to me about the world and why things are the way they are, and why we treat each other the way we treat each other. So that was how I had focused my intent. I wanted to just know the true nature of reality, and it was a it was a traumatic experience. It was not a fun thing. A lot of people, if you go on YouTube and you watch the so-called trip reports, a lot of people are like, "Oh yeah, I just felt universal love, and it was so great." I was terrified. I thought I went somewhere and I was never going to get out. I mean, I was in time loops. I was in a time loop where this is wild. This is wild, right? This is wild. So here, I'll tell you about time. This is weird, right? This is like Inception. So, this is wild. Caught in a time loop. So so when you're in ayahuasca, I was coming out, and as I came out, I thought I was out of the wherever you are, because when you're deep, when you go really deep, and you come out just for a second, Dan, you don't know shit about what I'm talking about. Get the fuck out of here. I have no interest in your take on any of this stuff. You're not going to say anything that I haven't heard from somebody who doesn't have a clue about any of this. So, what you want out, when you take the medicine and you go deep, you want out. You're like, okay, I saw what I needed to see. I need to get the fuck out of here. And guess what? You can't get out. But guess what? You also don't have a conception of time. It isn't like, okay, so like, let's say I'm getting the shit beat out of me for 2 hours. Like, okay, I can do anything for 2 hours. I can do anything for 4 hours. I can do anything for 6 hours. There is no time. Wherever you go to, whether you're just deep in your unconscious, whether you go to another dimension, I don't know. I don't know. But you go fucking somewhere. And, and so whether or not your perception, the veil of the filter of reality we have is lifted, so you just see the different frequencies of reality, maybe you just go deep in your, wherever you are, you can't fucking get out, and there's no such thing as time. So you're like, oh shit, couple more, what time is that? Oh, okay, 2 more hours. There is no 2 more hours. You're there, man. So I was in a time loop where I had seen a thing happen. It was like one of the helpers, one of the shamanic helpers, walked through there, and then they're walking someone to the bathroom, and I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, they're in the bathroom, and they're gonna go that way." Okay, and then I would see that again, and I go, "Oh wait, okay, so she's right here. She's walking in the middle of the room, and they're gonna take a guy." And I go, "Wait a minute, I've seen this before. What the fuck?" And then I'm like, "Okay, they're gonna do." So it was time kept repeating. That's what a time loop is. Time kept repeating itself. I kept seeing the same scene over and over again, and I knew how it was going to end. Now, the question, of course, is if you're just hallucinating that, then you're in your own mind imagining that, and it's a very lucid dream. So you're controlling what you see, so you're not really in a time warp. You're just in a dream, but you're directing the dream. Maybe. I don't know. That's the whole point. I went into the experience having a lot of opinions, and I left not having very many opinions. I left not having very many opinions, because what's it like? What's it like to not have time? What's it like to not have free will? What's it like to not have to not know who you are? To have some kind of deep, almost amnesia, where who am I? Where How did I even get here? And then wanting out, and then coming back to coherence, and then wanting out, and then believing that you can't get out, believing that you're trapped in this world without time. What does that even mean? I don't know. Like I said, I had a lot of opinions going in, but I went really deep the second time, much, much deeper than the first time. The first time I thought I went deep. No. The second time I went deep, and it was a pretty terrifying thing. And so that's why I'm saying now you got to focus your intent. So me, I wanted to know like the true nature of reality. And when you're shown the true nature of reality, you're shown everything. So you were shown universal love, universal hate. I witnessed genocides, right? How do you say witness? I just you witnessed them, just like it's happening in front of you, and because that's part of reality. Love is part of the totality of reality. The experience. So that's why people go, "Oh yeah, I want to do." I tell people, don't even think about it, man. I'm the ant. Most people are like, "Oh, did I go mother? I blah blah blah." I'm the opposite. I'm like, don't even think about it. You should not do that, because the flip side is the medicine will find people when it's time. The medicine finds people when it's time. But it's quite a terrifying experience. But you focus your intent. That's what you learn is you focus your intent. And so when I'm going to a meditation retreat for this weekend, in preparation for that, I just spent a lot of time introspectively, what do I want to work on? Right? Right. So we got a guy here, enthogenics just reduce us to chemicals, electrical. See, he knows everything, right? He knows everything. That's what's so funny. You don't know shit, buddy. You don't know shit. But that's just like Reddit reductionism. You think you know, but you don't know shit because you've never been there. You have no idea. And that's what people. Well, just nobody gives a fuck what you read on Wikipedia or Reddit, bro. Nobody gives a fuck. And that's why you focus your intent before you go in. What do you want to work on? That's how you do any kind of meditation retreat or any kind of spiritual retreat. Then you want to focus your intent going in. You have to spend several days. What am I going to do? What do I want to focus my intent on? What do I want to work on? Do I want to, focus on, vulnerability or focus on some kind of area that you could rise up? You don't know. Well, but I mean, you don't. It's not that you don't know. It's that you need to focus before you go in. But then you go in, anything can happen, right? Anything can happen when you go in. So I thought it was interesting because after I did ayahuasca, I would watch all these trip reports, they call them. People are like, ah, they're like their eyes even change a little bit. So people after they go through these spiritual experiences, there's like a look that people have. Like I can look at someone and tell if that person's done entheogens or plant medicine. You can just look at them, and you can tell that. So for me, I wasn't like, oh, so great. Let's all do it together. Let's do a retreat. Let me bring a bunch of people with me next time, and we can all just do it together. Because that's not what I needed. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted to learn. But yeah, you do learn that our human minds can only see so much, can only handle so much. There's a lot of wisdom. Yeah, I don't know. Ice Cube. I don't know if I think he would have an interesting experience. I think he'd have a very difficult experience. Did ayahuasca change my mind about death? Yeah, I did have the belief that almost all of us go to heaven, which is contradictory to Christian theology, and I understand all this. I don't need theological lectures of people who have studied the Bible much less than I have. Like I grew up on this stuff, so I don't need to be told these things. And I've if you read Emanuel Swedenborg, he claimed that he traveled to all these dimensions, right? So most Christians don't even know about Emanuel Swedenborg, and he claimed that he had traveled to all these dimensions and heaven and hell had neighborhoods. And I remember reading that in college and being like, what a kook, He had the highest IQ ever in human history, right? He had the highest IQ ever in history, and he claimed that he, heaven and hell, these neighborhoods. And I go, no, it's not, because I thought I knew things because I was a young man. I was like a lot of you here trying to correct me. You know things. And when you are presented with information that contradicts what you know, you immediately fight against that with what you know or think you know. And that's also what I learned on the medicine, is that I went in there thinking that I knew something. And rather than be open to the experience and to the wisdom and the knowledge, I wanted to fight against it. This can't be happening. This can't be true. And then that makes it a much more difficult experience. That's why for me it was difficult, because I was fighting it the whole time with what I knew and what I didn't know. So people who have the best run, they just surrender completely to the process. And that's not me. That's not any, but even saying that's not me is setting limitations and is fighting against the process, right? And that's, again, hard to explain until you're there and you can't escape. And you're confronted with that. Like, well, why do I say that's not me? Why do I fight against this? What? Because it's fear, it's vulnerability, it's trauma. It's protecting yourself from your own wounds. It's hiding from your own wounds. That's why, when you're there, you cry. Well, why do you cry? Because your trauma is being unreleased, and it's being released from your body. So you find out that a lot of people who are the toughest people have the most trauma, which makes sense. I mean, it's intuitive. If you go to the gym, you get calluses on your hands. If you've lived a rougher life, you have calluses on your soul. And all of those get peeled away. And then all of that gets released. It's very, very difficult. It's a trying experience, but that's where you learn that, are you afraid to love? Well, I'm not afraid to love. Are you afraid to love? Because you're afraid to be hurt, maybe. That's a lesson that you might learn, is the bravery it takes to love, the bravery it takes to have an unconditional love for people, right? Because that creates vulnerability for your own self. That creates vectors of attack. And even my own mind thinks about these things militaristically, right? So I could analyze my own language patterns, right? Which is what I do when I do consulting with people. Is I analyze language patterns when I talk to people, and I say, okay, this is the kind of language patterns you use, and I use a very militaristic language, vectors of attack and vulnerabilities. And then you ask why that is. Is that what happened there, right? What happened to get you there? Do you feel like you have to fight all the time? Well, maybe you do, but maybe you don't. Maybe you, because fighting is good. You should fight. You should have a warrior spirit. But are you fighting all the time? And they're not learning when to not fight, when to love, right? When to go to war, when to love. This is all there, presented for you, confronted with it, because some people are not. They're afraid to fight. Some people are afraid to love. Some people are afraid to fight. Right? Think about that for a minute. People are afraid to love. People are afraid to fight. Some people are afraid to do both, and they live flat, empty experiences where they don't know love. They don't know struggle. They don't know conquest. They don't know having their own losses. Those people are just flatlined. A flat life. Is that how you want to live a flat life? You don't really know. So it's all there. It's all there in front of you in a way that's terrifying because you can't escape. For example, because when I'm there, you're trying to contextualize. That's also too where I learned the power of the books you read, the stories that you've learned. Everything in our life we contextualize with story. And if you want to be brave, you think about someone who is brave. You see this even when your children are quite young. So with my daughter, for example, Syra, I'll try to get her to she has one of those little walker bikes. It's not important what that is, but she has a little walker bike, for example. It's like, all right, come on, we're going to do it this way. I don't know, I'm afraid. I go, be like Marshall from Paw Patrol or something, right? So already you're imprinting story in your mind and virtue in your mind and characters in your mind. So if it's a kid, it's a cartoon. And then it's there's adult leadership figures. Which is, politically, I think, why a lot of people don't understand why Trump is losing a lot of messaging is I don't think that many people anymore are like, I want to be a badass like Trump, right? Whereas 5 years ago that was the case. That's where unconsciously Trump has lost the hive mind in a way that a lot of people can't appreciate, because 5 years ago people would say Trump's a fighter, Trump's a warrior, Trump will take on anyone. And then you see him and you're like, nah, I mean, he folded to Pelosi at the government shutdown, didn't do the, he just isn't. So then you don't look at him as somebody that you would model. And if people aren't looking at you as someone that they would model themselves after, then you've lost the hive mind. You've lost the mind of the leadership. I say this all the time. Nobody really cares about what Arnold Schwarzenegger is doing today. Everybody's, Arnold, pumping iron, Terminator, or whatever. They have the conception of Arnold when he was, a superhero, even though that was a false artifice. And that's what you learn about stories too. It doesn't matter if they're true or false. Stories are an artifice, and your brain accepts the artifice as true or false. Or the brain doesn't accept the artifice as true or false. It doesn't matter. So you have fictional examples guide your real life decision making, your real life virtue. And that's why people don't really care what Arnold's been up to lately. Arnold's not somebody where people go, I really want to be like the old Arnold, right? People maybe want to be like, a lot of people want to be like the young Arnold still. He's inspired, I don't know, more people probably than anyone in my lifetime, maybe in any lifetime. So with Trump, he's lost that plot. He's lost that's that je ne sais quoi, that X factor. When people talk about the X factor, je ne sais quoi, people have that thing that makes people want to follow them. And a lot of that is displayed virtue. You learn about this with, Aristotle and McIntyre. There's been some more modern thinkers, but you learn about it in terms of like virtue. Are you living the kind of life that people would want to model? You see that even too with marketing. So if you're marketing, there's a couple guys, they do good marketing. The Tate brothers do great marketing. Whether you agree with them or not, blah, 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 blah. I'm not really into that. But they're creating a modeling, that certain young men like. They want the Lamborghinis and the attractive women and the money. That's what a lot of, young men want. So they would say, well, that would be somebody that they would look up to because they value those virtues and they see those virtues exhibited, even if others might consider that those vices. It doesn't matter. It's modeling. And we don't have that's why I talk about role models. We don't have a lot of, role models necessarily, right? We don't have. And so, for example, if you talk about Trump, a lot of people, this is the thing Nikki's saying, a lot of people say, well, the deep state's stronger than it is. But basically all you're saying is Trump's not strong enough to do it. But so by arguing with me, you're actually agreeing with me. You're like, well, Trump can't do it. Too many forces are against him. The world, blah, 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 blah. But that's just a long way of saying that no one is saying Trump's a fucking badass. He's killing it anymore. That's not what people are saying. You don't, right? There's still people like him. And it doesn't mean you don't like someone either. It just means that you're not saying this guy's a fucking badass. Nobody says that anymore. Nobody thinks that anymore. Not even supporters. That's why people have to make excuses for him. Well, it's too much. It's unreasonable expectations. It's this, that, and the other thing. Fine. That doesn't refute the underlying point, though. But unless you go deep in a story and deep into these concepts and have a structural way to understand the world, you miss that point. So, Calicorius, or whatever his name is, does my favorite thing. You need to work on your pride. In what world do you think you are anyone to tell me anything, right? How much ego do you need to have to tell me how to live my life? Because all things considered, released major blockbuster film, best-selling book. How many people have done a best-selling book and a badass feature length film, just objectively, right? So that is like the classic ego thing. Oh, you're too egotistical. Well, who the fuck are you? What kind of ego do you need to tell me that I'm too egotistical? Why do you try to bring me down? That's your own insecurities. That's your own hang-up, right? That's your own ego fighting against another ego, not even realizing that you're fighting against that ego, and that it's your own egos and your own insecurities and vulnerabilities being triggered because you don't have a deep understanding of anything, really. But you feel like you have to push back. I have to push back. I have to bring this guy down a notch. Because that's what you're saying. I have to bring this guy down a notch. Why? Right? Why? Thanks for the super hearts, Kathy. Always good to see Kathy. Good to see you, my friend. And that's what you learn again through the plant medicines and other deep meditation retreats and meditative experiences and spiritual experiences, that your need to bring someone down a notch is you unconsciously saying, I need to bring them down to my level. Right? Do you understand that? I need to bring them down to my level. Why don't you go to a higher level? Right? Why do you need to bring somebody down to your level? Why don't you go to a higher level? Why don't you say that's an aspirational figure? Wow, how'd that person get to such a higher level? See? That's how you want to think about the world. Why do I want to bring other people down? Why don't I want to rise up? Why don't I want to bring people up with me? Because that's what I've done. How many people on Twitter you never would have heard of from me? That's why I always let people like, oh, so much ego. How many people have 100,000 Twitter followers because of me, and only because of me? 10, 15, maybe more, right? How many people have over 10,000 Twitter followers because of me? Hundreds. But I'm the one with the big ego. So I spend every day building up smaller accounts, and I've done this for years. But I'm the big ego. How does that make any sense? And a lot of people with 10,000 followers are, not to diminish anyone, but just people that, good people, good Americans, but they never would have had that unless I boosted them up. Right? Facts. But I'm the big ego, but I go out of my way to build people up and promote people. But I'm the big ego. See? Doesn't even make any sense. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say I say some really, nobody says what nobody's done what I've done in terms of my messaging, which doesn't mean that other people aren't doing their own great things, because other people are. Other people are doing great work. But I charity box Ice Cube. I got Amanda 20 followers. Thank you, Amanda. You're welcome. Yeah, because it's all the slow grind. The building a following, which not everybody has to want. I never wanted a big following, and then I ended up getting one. It's bizarre. But yeah, I would charity box Ice Cube. That would be, I think, evenly matched. He'd have good coaches. I have more experience. Yeah, Ice Cube is. Ice Cube has always been pretty enlightened. You can't write a track like No Vaseline without having a pretty deep understanding of human nature. Even if it's an intuitive understanding that you can't quite articulate. Just every line in No Vaseline and the delivery, everything about that song is perfect. You could do a college class on that track. And to have that kind of understanding, which again is if it's only intuitive or not, means that you have a big spirit, a big soul. Think about it. Tupac was dead at 25. I'll never do what Tupac did. Notorious B.I.G. I think died at 28, right? So they have that big soul, but you have to learn how to cultivate it, not let it be corrupted. It's all complicated. Anyhow, I got to go. Something just came up. Thanks for watching. Mike Cernovich, cernovich.com, CERNOVICH.com.